sometimes offended by it, but they're very blunt. I mean, because they are like one big family, though. It's like two deaf people can meet each other, have never known each other, and then within 5 minutes they are long lost friends. You know, it's part of that shared experience in the culture. You know, they first introduce themselves as my name. This is where I went to school, and if they went to residential or boarding school for the deaf, then they talk about that and their common experiences. Very affectionate. They always hug a lot. Like, I mean, there's lots of hugging and just very, very loving toward each other. Fun-loving. They're active. They're loyal. They're supportive. They love sports. You know, anything that's like a big social event. Like, they'll organize like Wet and Wild Deaf Day, or you know, where everybody will come from all over the state, and the kids, you know, young and old, will love doing that. Certainly.
Okay.
I think that anybody who makes any attempt to communicate with them in any way,
Yeah.
or even like being more open to the idea of paper pencil communication back and forth, or typing or texting on a phone and then turning and showing them, having them text. I mean, that
Right.
I've seen a lot of people use that way. Anybody who just like is not immediately turned off of like, oh my gosh, how do I communicate with you? But if
Right.
they try to communicate, I mean, any attempt to
Yeah.
use the language is appreciated.
Yeah.
You know, the biggest thing, like, and if you ever have someone who's there interpreting with you, it's important to look at the deaf person the whole time you're talking, instead of looking at the interpreter and saying like, well, tell him or tell her. You just talk to them like you would be talking to them, and then they convey your message to them. But being open to, you know, pointing, you know, showing them on the menu, writing it down for them, all that is good. It's really interesting. You feel like sometimes you feel like you're on the outside because you're never going to be deaf. You know, you're never going to be who they are. And so sometimes you feel like you're really you're not a part of it, and other times you just feel like you're immersed in it. You know, like I have to MC all the main events like homecoming, prom, I mean, all those things. And one of my students who was actually in the last group that I taught, it was like my favorite class ever in 8th grade 4 years ago, and they just graduated, and when they wrote their essays in the senior year for this Right to Learn program we had, they had to write about their favorite teacher or whatever, or a memorable teacher, and one of my former students had written, she had a lot of other nice things to say, but one of the things that stuck out to me was that she said that I was loved by the deaf community. And so it's like, it's one of those things where you can be hearing, but you can still be loved by the deaf community. You can still be accepted by the deaf community. It's not so much as your hearing status or deafness status, but it's more about your philosophy and your perspective, and how do they see you as an advocate for what's best for them, or do they see you as someone who's working against them? And so it's really a matter of like who you are and what you do. And if they see that you love deaf people and you will do everything that's in their best interest, then it's like you're accepted. You know, I mean, there's still a small minority of deaf people who might be resistant to hearing people in general, because maybe their experiences with hearing people have been so atrocious that they just feel like they don't even want to have anything to do with them. Or anybody, they might be suspicious, like, well, what you're hearing, like, why would you want to be an assistant principal? Why would you want to lead in a school for the deaf when you're not deaf? Like, why, you know, there was the whole Deaf President Now movement at Gallaudet University in 1988, where the students actually locked down the entire campus. And Gallaudet is the only, you know, full liberal arts college for the deaf in the world. They locked down the campus. They wouldn't let anybody in or out, and they protested all week and said, you know, we want a deaf president, we want it now. And so that's when Heidi's dad, Ike Jordan, was then selected as the president. He was the first deaf president, and it like revolutionized everything. And so I think about that as far as like, well, I'm a leader in a deaf school, but do my students sometimes wish that I were deaf? You know, sometimes I wonder that, but they see that I work with them and I love them, so. From them. Vocational rehabilitation, or VR, is huge for our students. The deafness used to be pretty high on the priority list, but then when funding cuts happened, then now they've moved down on the priority list, and so we get our students to sign up at least by sophomore year so that they're on the waiting list. So by the time they graduate, then they're closer to the top of the waiting list, and they can get all kinds of services as far as like job coaching, interview skills, job placement, money for college, money for tech school, all kinds of services through that. There's deaf action centers pretty much in every community, depending on how many deaf people are there, and so they can get interpreters through there, they can get other services through there. There's the Center for Independent Living, or CIL. They're good. They have other offerings for them also. Independent Living Resource Center. There's usually one of those in each community, and they have different access. They'll even sponsor their own events for deaf people, and it can be like a little mini culture cultural experience as far as that goes. That is huge too, because like I mean, I'm friends with a lot of deaf adults, and when we go out to lunch or we go out in the community, I don't interpret for them, and it's not because I don't love them. I love them, and that's why I don't interpret for them. They need to do it for themselves. They want to do it for themselves. That's the part of deaf culture. Is deaf people who are capital D deaf are proud. They love who they are. They love being deaf. Most of them wouldn't even want to be able to hear if they could, because it would be like so foreign to them. It would be like, wouldn't you rather be a small Asian girl? No, like you've never been that. So why would you be proud of who they are? And they are disabled. They will say, I can do everything except here. I can do everything except here. And so they see themselves, many deaf people don't even see themselves as disabled, which is the appropriate term at this point, you know, the appropriate euphemism. In the past they were called, you know, mentally handicapped, you know, they were called handicapped, which, you know, if you think about it, they are disabled in the sense of they cannot hear, but most of them don't even think of themselves as having a deficiency. That's a very medical view of them. They think of themselves as like, this is who I am. I sign, you know, I do things that other people can't do. Like my friend Martin, I've worked with him for years, and he has the best eyesight. He can be like looking down at paper and still see what I'm telling him. He will notice things before I will notice them. It's just amazing. And being disabled, having like not being able to hear, you're only handicapped by the environment. So when a group of deaf people, they can all communicate with each other, they can all sign, they're not handicapped. They go into an environment like a restaurant where the server doesn't know sign language, the manager or the hostess doesn't know sign language. They're handicapped only by the environment because the environment doesn't know how to sign. So they're never handicapped, but it's just more of an issue of access, you know? It's like the person in a wheelchair may not feel handicapped until they get to a library and there's no ramp, you know? They're not able to walk, they're disabled, but then they're handicapped by the environment by there being no ramp.
Does your organization do special things for newly arrived Africans?
Yeah, the newly arrived Africans, most of the time when we hear about them, we contacted a lot of the Ghanaians in town who are businessmen and women and who are professors. So we let them know who to contact. We have Comfort African Market.
Okay.
Yeah, she sells a lot of the African food. It become the first point of contact.
Your organization try to do things with Americans here, or do they just try to stay within the African community?
We do things with Americans. We used to have, although now we don't do it, we used to have Christmas parties. Every year we invite everybody. And then we used to also have our Independent Day party. We invite everybody and we cook for everyone. You know, so we invite every people. Yeah, because being here, we have married American women.
Yes.
My wife is an American.
Yes.
So if I'm going somewhere with my Ghanaians, I can't say she should stay home.
Exactly.
And then she will go there and meet other people who are married to Americans. So that's how, and then they bring their fathers, their cousins. So we involve them.
Okay.
We involve them as much as we can, and then we try to educate them also about our culture.
Okay.
Sometimes it becomes a little bit very difficult. So we have to educate them. Our culture is extended policy culture. So that's how. Yeah, we involve everybody.
Have you seen a difference with people from Jacksonville accepting Africans and different cultures?
Yeah, there's a difference of accepting the African people or the foreign black people because they are kind of identify with us more now. But they are hardworking, disciplined. So, they embrace us for that.
Okay.
Yeah, they embrace us for that.
Do you know if there's a certain part of Africa that's more represented here in Jacksonville than other parts?
Yeah, the